Hello, hello, good afternoon, good evening. For those of you that are joining us on the East Coast, it's the evening time, and our West Coast customers and prospects, we are excited for you to join us as well. Hopefully you're having a nice afternoon. We are going to be going into a 10-point digitizing checklist with our guest presenter this evening, Ever Romero from Romero Threads. He is a WorldCom America ambassador. We love Ever. He has a plethora of knowledge. So we are going to be highlighting 10-point digitizing checklist with Ever tonight. On your actual toolbar, you'll see a chats and questions panel throughout the presentation. Feel free to type in some questions. We'll cover most or some of those questions throughout the presentation. I'll open that up and I'll be able to moderate those over to Ever. But feel free again just to chat those in the questions panel to the right hand side. My name is Selena Appleberry, one of the sales managers with WorldCom America. So again, just thank you for joining us this evening. We are really excited at WorldCom America to be highlighting our 2026. So we just released EmbroideryStudio 2026 with some really nice new features and updates. So I want to just touch on that briefly. Ever will be highlighting some of those features throughout the presentation. For those of you that have additional questions, again, please feel free to reach out to us. Great, number one drumroll feature is a multi-blend. So this allows for multiple blends, not just two colors, within the software. You can build your automatic profiles of up to 3, 4 different multi-blend colors. Again, not limited to 2. This would be standard in your designing level. Okay, designing level. That also kind of coincides with the custom accordion spacing that's now new in 2026. So this allows for you to support variable densities on a single accordion spacing. So why are some reasons to upgrade? Those are a couple. We also have added red work. Red work is going to be standard across the board for designing users. Continued digitizing is another nice one. This is great because you can pick up exactly where you left off with digitizing. Okay, so utilizing that input A, you can pick back up where you left off after the fact with the continued digitizing tool. Precision digitizing with snapping options. So we have snap to outline or snap to guide. This is standard actually across the board in designing, decorating. And editing if you are actually doing an edit or snap to node for the editing side. But designing and decorating, this is going to be great. It's a snap to guide, snap to grid as well. That would be across the board for editing, decorating, and designing. Streamlined production export. So now you can actually export multiple machine files and production worksheets all in one click. So you can do that right off, one-stop shop. You can export to your Baradin, your Tajima, etc. And then you can also make even a print production worksheet with that, and even a design bitmap. Okay, so you can do a capture design bitmap for that as well for your approval. Independent pool compensation, and Ever was really excited by this one. So the independent pool compensation would allow for you to have the pool compensation on each side. You could have a varied pool compensation on each side or a varied side 1, side 2 of your object. Major and minor grids, that's going to be available amongst all levels. The independent pool compensation available amongst all levels as well. I am super excited by our built-in AI. We are calling it our answers. This is available on all levels. I mean, guys, this is a really detailed, full scope of great use of AI and giving you full access to resources of questions. I mean, you name it, any question you have, it's going to give you the best answer for it. How do I start a lettering on a curve? Gives you full detailed how to, and then even takes you to a help screen manual that you can read a little bit more information about it as well. We've also added the automatic buttonholes. So if you were doing, you want to do a split button or a split front button, if you're doing like baseball uniforms, jerseys, etc., you can now incorporate the buttonholes on the screen there. We also have 5 new motif sets. So this is a total of 99 new motif fill patterns. For those that are in decorating and designing, that would be standard. For those of you that are in the designing level that have the motifs add-on for your motif run stitches, you're going to gain 99 new motif run stitches as well. So that is an add-on for designing the motif run, but it is standard for a fill for decorating and designing. Okay, so standard fills, 99 additional new ones that you're going to get. We've added more fonts. We're up to over 240 fonts, close to 250 fonts now across the board in WorldCom. So that's going to be from your lettering all the way up to designing. And these are just a snapshot of a few. Cool new script fonts that we have available, all going to come to you standard. What we're going to cover in this today. So Ever's going to go over some parameters, what to gather from your customers: size, color, garment type, sequencing, stitch type, and then DLA, which is density, length, and angle. We want to understand the core settings of those and define the stitch quality. Underlay, this is your foundation. It's like the foundation of a house, okay? Two things I always say sets good embroidery from bad embroidery is underlay, stitch density, right? So choosing the right foundation or underlay for a clean and stable embroidery. Pull compensation, adjusting for fabric to push and pull, okay? So we want to understand that pull compensation and be able to adjust and maintain accurate shapes. Start and stop points. We're going to have, we're going into a planning a smooth travel throughout the design. We want that smooth travel, and so we'll kind of understand that start and stop points from there. And then tie-ins and tie-offs. So ensuring the secure stitching, we want to ensure that it is tied in or tied off so you're not unraveling or have your stitch unraveling on you. Trims and jumps, reducing unnecessary movements and maximizing efficiencies. Okay, that's all of that, trims and jumps. And then saving and exporting. So we'll understand the best practices for delivering production-ready files to your customer. Any questions you have for us, again, feel free to contact Welcome America directly. Any questions for Ever, please reach out to him. He has a fabulous YouTube channel. Follow him at Romero Threads. And without further ado.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ever Romero.
Ever, yes.
Oh,
yes, go ahead, Ever. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay. My name is Ever Romero with Romero Threads, and I am super excited for this presentation we have today. Let me see if I could put my screen, show my screen. Yep. So let me know if we're good, if you see my screen.
We are good to go.
Okay, yes. So first of all, thank you for the great introduction, Selena. All right. Yeah, it made me excited. I'm a fan of embroidery and just learning embroidery. So the way I like to teach and explain information is the same way I wish somebody back in the days would have showed me. So I'm always hyped up for this. And especially today's topic, the 10-point digitizing checklist, and really what motivated me to have this topic. I've been teaching this topic. This is probably the third time in 3 years that I've taught this class. But every year, so I do it about once a year. But every year I kind of tweak it up a bit and tighten it up and make it a little better. And this one we probably took 5 steps better. So I'm excited to kind of bring out the new and improve 10-point digitizing checklist. And what motivated me really, because I'm in the U.S. Navy, active duty. So anytime when we're out at sea and we have any type of evolution, everything is based off a checkpoint, right? Everybody, especially when we have different departments and different hands and different ideas for a common goal, all the checklist we got to make sure everything is checked off, because sometimes we're moving so fast, we're doing 3 things at the same time, and we forget little small details, which at the very end kind of can bite us in the rear. So really, that's the same thing with digitizing, is sometimes we're moving so fast, or right, because sometimes we send out our files out to a digitizer. Sometimes we receive a file and we go straight to stitching out files. But if we take a step back and we kind of look at the 10-point digitizing checklist, it kind of gives us a guide and makes sure that everything that we do, everything that we designed, or everything that we're about to stitch out is going to be as efficient as possible. So that's where really this 10-point checklist came about. So we have from 1 through 10. Some of these, right? There's no like particular order that it has to be. This is really just a guideline, right? And I know you had the screen there where I had the whole 10 checklist. Really, if you have a screenshot of that, like you're good with that. Or if you're taking notes, right, you probably need like 3 or 5 pieces of paper if you're gonna take notes, because I'm gonna put out a lot of information. And really, as we're going into 2026, this is kind of like the foundation that I'm gonna go with as I'm teaching the class. I'm always going to revert to this 10-point checklist. Just that way, we make sure all the checks are all good to go before we do number 10, which is saving and exporting. So that's kind of like the baseline there. And I do have a design right here. Okay, let me see. And something very basic here. All right, I'm actually wearing this hat right now, but I don't have my camera on right now. So on a future video, especially if you follow me on YouTube or on TikTok, you'll see me sporting this hat. So everything that I'm talking about, um, I've already stitched it out. So I'm kind of I like to stitch out anything that I'm gonna teach. I like to stitch it out beforehand. That way, sometimes it looks perfect, clear on the software, all right? But then when we see it stitched out, we have to make little tiny adjustments, right? Just to get it perfectly on point. All right. So I always like to do stitch outs just to make sure to make little tweaks here and there, which we'll talk about there. And you can see here on my screen, I got the 2026, and I have about what, a week and a half that I've been working on this on the 2026, and really it's just running smooth. All right, which I always like smooth. And you can see here like my grid lines, right? Like I'm gonna highlight a lot of the features. So Selena, she read about the features, but I'll show you here, right, in real time, these cool features. Because before, just it's just small. There's a lot of small minor details, but at the end, right, when you combine a lot of these features, it just makes the whole workflow a whole lot faster. So, for example, like this grid, right? Like a lot of people don't think about the grid, but if you come from like a graphic design background, if you've worked with Illustrator or Corel Draw and you've used kind of grids, right, it's gonna make um, your design, right, a whole lot quicker. For example, this one here is a symmetrical design that we got here, right? But here we have a grid. You can see the darker lines, 10 millimeters, right? It's 10 millimeters, and then we chop it up into 5 pieces, right? And then it's all here in the setup. So when we go bam to grids, you can see here we have a major, and you can customize it however you want it to customize, right? I think this is like my sweet spot right here. With I have 10 millimeters as my major, and then my minor, I'm going to chop it up into 5 pieces. If you want to chop it up into 4, whatever, however many pieces you want to chop it up, right, that's the minor. So I think right now we're at a sweet spot right now. Okay, and we can start off uh, with the first one on the 10-point checklist for digitizing, okay, and that is parameters. Okay, parameters, I like to call it the rules of digitizing. Every embroidery shop, okay, every embroidery shop has their own rules. So those are your parameters. For example, if somebody gives you this design, let me take off the grid here. If somebody just gives you this design and says, hey, I want a hat, right? And I don't know if you've had this experience where somebody says, "Hey, can you turn this design into a hat?" And then you ask them, "Okay, what size do you want?" Right? And a lot of times our customers, they don't know the sweet spot of a size. They're gonna say, "Hey, whatever you think works best," right? Or sometimes they could even give you like a crazy number, like, "Oh, I want it real big, about 4 inches for a hat." Right? And that's where your parameters are gonna start kicking in. And you're gonna say, okay, but we're limited. So that's what parameters are. The rules are limitations. So we already know for hats, right? We can go 3 millimeters. I mean, 3 inches, but maybe we don't want to go 3 inches, right? Or we could. I think the biggest size for a hat I've done was 3.25. Okay, so just because we can do it doesn't mean a lot of times we want to do it. So usually 2.5, 2.75 is probably the biggest that I would go, but every shop has its own parameters. Okay, so this is like the interview part where we're interviewing our customers. We want to know what size do they want. And if we recommend a size, okay, over experience, after a while, you'll have experience in giving recommendations of sizing, right? Because let's say, for example, a left chest polo, right? Sometimes bigger is not better. Sometimes I've seen people with designs that are too big, right? And then just my embroidery brain is like, kind of arguing in that situation with myself, like, oh my God, that size is way too big, or vice versa. Sometimes the design is too small, too tiny, especially with text. Sometimes like in my brain, I'm like, oh, they should have made it a tad bit bigger, right? But that's all with parameters. A lot of that is, it's like 50-50. It's your customer giving you information, and you as the embroiderer, right? You're giving them the recommendation. Okay, you know what? That might be too big. Let's shorten it up a bit, right? So parameters for the 10-point checklist. That's just the rules of the game or of the design. Okay, that way everybody's on the same page, right? So parameters super important. Even before we start clicking and getting into the digitizing, we want to make sure we are all on the same page, and that includes placement, right? Where do you want this design to be placed at? And colors, right? Or variations of colors. Okay, so very easy. It's a very easy checkpoint, but at the same time, it's one of the most important ones. That way, there's no miscommunication with this project. Okay, so that one's a pretty easy one. Number two, okay, number two is sequence, the stitch order, right? So when we're looking at this design, and this is where I want to challenge everybody here in the chat, is when we look at this design, right? We got to put like our embroidery X-ray glasses, and we need to chop up this design right here. So I would challenge everybody, like right now, let's look at this design and then tell me how many objects do you see, right? And if you're not familiar with objects, we'll talk about what are objects, but really it's like how many shapes can we break this design into, right? We got the two circles on the top, right? So that's two right there. We have the two triangles, right? And then our brains are gonna start kicking in like, hey, what's the size of those hooks, right? Can we do it all the way straight up, or do we got to break up this hook into pieces, right? So when we're looking at it, okay, we got to start thinking to ourselves and start saying, okay, how many objects? What's on top of what, right? Which hook is on top of which hook? That's another question that we're going to have. And you give this to 10 different digitizers, right? You're going to get 10 different designs. Nobody's going to digitize a design the same way, especially when the customer gives you specific parameters, right? Sometimes we just use our own judgment as digitizers. We can use our own judgment, or sometimes we got to go back to the customer and say, hey, how do you prefer this this hook to be, right? Do you want the left hook to be on top of the right, or the right? Because whatever side you pick, right, there's a 50-50 chance that might not be the correct way. Or sometimes if there's already a previous design already stitched out, then right, easy day, you just follow that one. But sometimes there isn't like a standard set design already. Okay, so sequence, right? And then another thing, we always hear start from bottom up, left, center out, right? That's always the key one. For the most part, you could follow that, but there's times where to minimize stitch cuts, right? Sometimes you got to deviate from that sweet little saying that we always say, right? Bottom up, inside out. So sequence is another thing. Do we want to move from center to the left, or do we want to go from left all the way to the right? Okay, so right now we're kind of putting our thinking cap right now, right? Trying to think, hey, should we start from these circles up here, right? Should we start from the hooks, from the sharp points? Okay, and a lot of times there is no right or wrong answer. It's all experience, and really the way I like to do it is just minimize trims as much as possible. Anytime my machine makes a trim, I always ask myself, was that trim necessary? Okay. And it just speeds up the machine, right? And usually you get thread breaks, or the possibility of a thread break goes up when you introduce trims. Okay. So sequence, right? And then we're going to see all this right now when I start digitizing, start clicking. We'll start talking about all that. All right. Number 3, stitch type, right? We really got 3 popular stitch types, um, even though we actually have way more. So you can see up here on my outlines, I have all these. And then on my fills, I got so many. So there you got the primary 3, right? Which is the run stitch, fill stitch, satin stitch. Run stitch, I like to use them so we can move around the design, right? If we need to move from left to right, right, we're using a run stitch, or if I'm using a placement stitch, right, we got a run stitch. Fill stitch for larger areas. I see fill stitch, the way I like to compare the fill stitch is like a concrete pad. When we need to fill big areas, such as a concrete pad, a slab, right, we're gonna use the fill stitch. And then sand stitch for this example here. Okay, so let's see sand stitch, right? So something here, we're looking at 4 millimeters. All right, this is sweet spot for a sand stitch, right? Once we start getting into 7s, 9s, right? We want to start thinking about our sand stitch. And then once we get into the super deep end, past 12 or even past 10, right? Now we got to start thinking about doing fill stitches, right? But here, super safe. Let's see, um, about 5, and then we go here about 7. Okay, so this design here, very satin stitch friendly. Okay, so that's another question. So these are questions that we're thinking about when we're doing our 10-point checklist. Right here, a lot of these questions are real easy because we have a real easy design. Okay, and then number 4, DLA, that's really our setting. So here, object properties, that's where I always have this one up. Actually, these 2 windows that I have up here, object properties and color object list, right? I pretty much have these 2 up standard up here. And for density, right, we got our fills, spacing, right? So when we go here, spacing, standard value 0.38. If we're going puff, right, then we switch it up to 1.8, right? But for right now, we could do 3.8 just to keep it like that. All right, auto spacing, I just keep it off, right? Bam, bam, and then auto split, keep it off, right? So that's auto split. You're gonna use it if your sand stitches are gonna go too long. We're gonna have to auto split them, okay? And then if we wanna, we give it the maximum. So here it's the same thing as parameters, right? How long do you want this length to be? Okay, um, density, length, stitch angle. All right, so let's talk about that right here. So we made it all the way up to number 4. So we got enough information to start digitizing. All right, so if you're following along and you kind of told yourself, how would you chop up this um, this design, right? Now, when we're looking at these hooks crossing each other, okay, let me see the hat. I'm wearing the hat right now. I have the right side, or this right hook here has the overlap. So my favorite digitizing tool, right? So these are our tools right here. You see these red ones here? The first three, column A, column B, column C, right? And one thing that's real cool, let's say you're just using this software for the first time, right? You see this light bulb here? Answers, right? This is like game changer right here. Okay, this is definitely game changer because let's say you could ask anything. So this is the Willcom AI generator answer. So you could say, what is the column B, right? And it's gonna give you, bam, what is the column B? Column B is a tool within Willcom embroidery software used for digitizing asymmetrical, right? So that's the key word right here, asymmetrical, right? If you're just doing a standard block, rectangle, right? You might want to use the alpha or the Bravo column A, turning stitches. So asymmetrical columns of turning stitches. This is my favorite one here, column B. Okay. In the chat, let me know what's your like go-to. I know a lot of digitizers, they like to use the column A, right? Really, every software has column A. But column B, for me, when I started using that, it uses less brain power that I need because my brain's already moving at 100 miles per hour. Column B just like minimizes all that information overload. Okay. This tool allows you to create shapes where the opposite sides have different designs or shapes. Okay, bam, bam. And then if you want more info, right, you click on it, bam, it sends you to the Willcom, right, all the online help, and it gives more information, right? So it's nothing but information right there. So there's anytime you're stuck on something or you see something here that you're unsure of, right? You could just use the AI and it's gonna give you answers right there. This to me that's like game changer right there. All right, because I used to have to go out, search for questions, right? But now it's all within the same program. So you're getting the actual answers. You're not getting like third party answers. You're getting actual answers. All right, let's put on this grid right here. All right, bam. So I'm gonna use this one. Okay, and then we could start putting our DLA, density, length, angle, density. So bam, right here. Um, so I'm going to, so column B, we're gonna do side A first. So this is side A, right? This is a straight line. You can see where this straight line goes all the way. We're gonna click it right there. Okay, bam, bam. Then it goes like straight here. And then I'm gonna digitize it. This version here, all right? I'm gonna show you like two different ways that we could digitize this hook. Push enter, and then on the bottom left, it says enter point 1 on side 2. So now we're doing the other side. Okay, so we go bam, click there. It's gonna go all the way straight there. We look for that tangent line, right? That tangent line right where it kind of goes off the curve, right? That's all straight line. Now we start curving. Bam, bam, curve, curve to the straight line here. Then we take it up here, all right? You notice that it's not like perfectly there because I wanted to emphasize the sharpness right here, right? All right, that's my last click, enter, right? And then I control H to control by stitch angles, okay? Because this right now, the software kind of estimated the stitch angles, but that's where we use the human brain to kind of give it the judgment. So I know I want that stitch here, this one here, right? Bam, then enter. All right, cool. Um, You can see that there's some stuff happening right here. Okay. You could adjust it, H, right? If you want this angle to be a little bit more like this, right? That's all your preference right here, depending on your preference. Okay. So bam, we got this one here. Okay. Let me hide this. Hide. All right, bam. Some cool stuff that we have now on the Wilcox 2026, right? Guides, right? We could put our guides right here. Sometimes I like putting guides that way. I know when I'm digitizing this one here and I'm clicking. Right, let's go a little bit lower here. Right, I know I'm gonna get the same distance here that I am on this side here too. Right, and then you could just put these, and something that's real cool, right, is this one here. You see this magnet? So you could put snap to guides. So I just put some guides. So that's gonna be pretty useful. Snap to objects. So if you have two objects or other objects, you could kind of line them up nice and clean, right? So we could put that right there. And all right, so we got that there. Um, so I'll do the same thing. Okay. Do it a little quicker. So, but here, when I get to this point, you see how it turns red, like that little line? That tells me I'm right there. It's gonna snap to where I want it, where I put that guide. Okay. So that one super useful here. Bam. Right. Okay. Super useful for just actually back up this one for designs that have these type of shapes right here. Okay. Bam. Find that tangent. Click, click, click. We'll stop right here. Right. Control H. Set my stitch angles. Bam. I mean, it can't get any easier than this right here. Right. All right. So what I did, okay, you could be creative on making this this hook here. All right. So what I like to do, um, get to one side, bam, bam, bam. So it could look like this. You give it a little bit more dimension right here. Now it looks more of a hook. All right. Uh, so I did stitch it out. I am gonna make a video where you could see it being stitched out. I like this version. Like I'm looking at my hat right now. It looks real solid like that. Like it just gives it that. So let me hide this. Right. Right. So it's like different styles of hooks. Okay. Bam, bam. All right. Now let's hide these right here. Okay. These circles here. Bam. Um, always different ways to make circles. So we have the column A, right? You could just go bam. The cool thing with column A, it does, there's two cool things about column A. All right. First of all, it gives you the distance, right? So you could kind of measure and have an idea where your sand stitches, right? Second, as you're digitizing, you're setting the stitch angles, right? So I'm setting the stitch angles right here. So you're saving like that extra step that I did before where I do Control H. I'm putting the stitch angles, right? And then we could just overlap them a tad bit. Bam, bam. Cool. Easy, right? Easy, easy. Now, let me see. Underlay, right? Underlay. Something like this. Let's measure this. right? We're looking at 3 millimeters. It probably doesn't need heavy underlay, especially where we have this curve right here, right? I would say this probably just needs a center center run, right? We see the center run right here. Bam. Now, let's say we want to make this little circle a little bigger, right? Um, you could do pull compensation, right? Pull compensation gives you like ex extra extra distance going out, right? So you could now, right? This one right here is just like my brain just went. And I got so happy when I saw this, right? Both sides, right? So if we do both sides, let's do something crazy like 0.6, which nobody would do, right? This is gonna extend both sides, right? Something like that, right? The thing about this, now we close that circle tighter, right? We don't want to close that circle. We just want to do one side, right? So we got separate sides, right? Now choose a side, right? So which side is the outside side, right? There's like a 50-50 chance that you'll get this right. Okay, I'm gonna say it's side one. Let's see if I'm correct. Let's say if I want to put this 0.6, bam. All right. Nope, that was the wrong one, wrong side. But instead of deleting everything and doing that, I could just switch it right here. Swap side values. Bam, right there. Easy day right there, right? So let's say you wanted to expand it a little bigger out, but you don't want to affect the inside of it, right? That would be a perfect situation right there. Okay, but I'm just gonna keep it the way it is. All right, and then what we can do, I could Control D. That I just duplicated there. I'm just gonna change the color so I could. All right, and then I'm gonna mirror it, right? Because I'm gonna take it to the other side. Mirror it, so it's mirrored. I'm gonna hold the Control button just so it doesn't move up or down. Bam, right there, right, black to black. There's two ways to do that. Let me go back like that. Okay, let me select it. Another way you could do it, just right click and then drag, holding Control, right? And then we can mirror it. Bam, right? Okay, now let's see. Um, all right, these triangles, right? These triangles mean that there's a trim right here. Bam, bam. Okay. Let's say we don't want to trim there. We want to go from this circle all the way to this other circle. That's where we would introduce our runs. All right. So we want to walk, and we would walk here, bam. Okay. So this would be part of our sequence. So we had number 2 was our sequence. We go 1, select here. I'm holding Control. Select my run. Select my other one, and then here, so sequence by selects, right? Sequence everything. Bam. So we start here, walk there. H, right? Actually, number 7 is our start and stops, right? So I'm gonna jump to like number 7 for right now. But when I push H, right? H, could make this bigger on this side, right? But the main thing here is my start and stops. Where do I want to start? Since my walking stitch just ended here, I'm gonna start the circle here, and I can end it here on that overlap. Right, bam. All right. H, start, stop. Okay. Bam, bam. All right. So usually I'm looking at these triangles, making sure that they're where I want them to be at. All right, so that one disappeared and that one's there. Okay, let me unhide these. Hide. And then T. Right, so let's resequence this again. So I would go, I'm gonna show you my final one that I did, but I'm just showing you an example of how we can move some of these right here. Bam. To this triangle and that one. Bam. Okay. All right, so you see here, we still have a lot of trims, right? Definitely not what we want. Okay, so we would move things around and use our walking stitch to kind of switch things around. Let me show you this final one. Hooks, this one. All right, this is the final one that I did. And you can see here that I actually, the one that's going under, right? You see this one down below? I actually chopped it up. I cut it up into 2 pieces, this one. All right. Just so minimize the amount of traffic down here, okay, when we're doing that cross, okay. And here, since it's 3D puff, okay, I put an overlap here. Okay, bam, bam. But let me play it for you so you could see what's going on. Bam, let's push play. All right, running stitch, right? This is my placement stitch. This is telling me where I'm gonna put my foam, right? So this is just a guide to myself, right? It's just a guide. You can see, let's see the drawing, right? The drawing's right here. I'm just trying to keep it within the middle. Okay, then I'm gonna put that foam. Then I start here. So I'm kind of staying away from center out, right? Um, Usually, right, you don't want to break rules, but sometimes I like to break the rules. I'm starting on this side. Right? Reason why, I'm just trying to minimize cuts. I have that overlap. Now I'm gonna run off this part here. Okay, let's speed it up a tad bit. Right. See, like right now that I'm replaying my design, I'm actually gonna go back and add a center run on this one. Right. Sometimes I like putting center runs on my phone because that green, that was just there for the placement. That really didn't get any the foam doesn't have that green on it. Okay, here it's just going to jump to the next, right, to the next object. So each of these shapes, they're objects. So right now, right, I'm gonna push play. It actually walked around. So I put a walking stitch here to hold that foam. Right, it's gonna do the circle one first. And then let me just show you my process, my thought of process right here. The reason why I'm putting this sand stitch so it could butt against this circle is that way I can avoid any gaps, right? I don't like to have the pool go on last. So this one here, the sand stitch is gonna push against that circle, okay? So that's my train of thought there. And then I'm gonna walk right here. I'm gonna walk again, right? So that's where you see the running stitches come into play, right? So in order to minimize trims, right? So trims number 9, trims and jumps. Okay, to me those are uh pests, right? When if they're not necessary, right? Remember, every trim there should be a reason why we're trimming something, right? Not just because um, we ran out of space, but if we can find a way to walk around it, right? So here I'm going to do the hook. And I like to end with these with 2 sides pushing against the outsides, right? So it's gonna go here. Bam, overlap, and it's pushing against that circle right there, okay? So we did all that with only one trim at the very end, okay? So that's the main number 3 stitch type, right? That's where we use that run stitch, where we use it kind of strategically, okay? Number 5 on the 10-point checklist is underlay, right? Since this is a, actually what I'm gonna do, this one here, right? I saved it, it's ready as a 3D puff, but let me go ahead, let me select black. Let me select all of black, and I'm just gonna change it to 0.38, right, for our flats, and underlay, right? This is always the big question. What underlay should I use? I'm actually gonna put this one for a beanie. I'm just gonna put a center run here, and as my second underlay, zigzag. I think that should be good. I don't think I need a double zigzag, right? But we should be good there. Okay. Sometimes when we kind of make these changes, there may be a trim introduced, right? Here, we didn't introduce any new trims. Actually, we did here, right? You can see them here, right? That's why it's so useful to see it like in this version, so you can see it. So this is just because the underlay kind of shifted a bit. Um, we need to make a couple adjustments, maybe on the walking stitches, all right? But this here is now beanie friendly, just like that, just like with 3 clicks. That was part of the number 5 underlay, right? Now the underlay is real useful when you're gonna change it from like a hat to a beanie to a polo shirt, right? These are really the ones, and there really isn't like a scientific formula when to use underlays. It's mainly how thick or what's the size that we have, right? So something like 4.5, right? You don't want to put too much, right? Once we start going bigger, right? The real popular one, edge run, okay? Edge run. You can even put an edge run here, okay? Edge run, one of my favorite underlays. I like it because it just keeps everything like crisp, like sharp, especially turns like this when we're doing turns, or even straight lines where they don't look all fuzzy and stuff, right? Cool thing about edge run, so let's say about when we do this turn, right? If you have it too tight, this underlay might show, but we can adjust it here, margins. We can put like a 0.5. It's gonna bring it more in the middle. Actually, I'm put 0.7 so you could see it more drastically, right? It comes in more here. So when we measure this, right, it should measure 0.7 distance. Okay, that's my favorite underlay, right? When I can, I use that. All right, bam. All right, pull come, start stop, tie-ins, tie-outs, right? Tie-ins, tie-outs, we already know we gotta use the beginning. So here I clicked on the first black, color black here. Okay, connectors, right? The cool thing about this object properties, I pretty much have my whole dashboard of settings right here, right? I have complete control of everything that I need right here. It's like I'm driving or I'm flying a jet, and all my control panels are like right here, right? A lot of the 10-point checklist, it lives right here in this area. Okay, so tie-in, right? Tie-in, you see it right here, tie-in. As it's going, hold on, let me make some space right here. Okay, so I'm focused on the tie-in, which is the first one, right? And the tie off at the very end, where you want to tie off, and then if you want to mess with it, bam, right here, right? You have the options of putting different if you want like a real strong knot right here, but the standard one, right? The five stitch tie off is usually this one, right? This one's a diamond one. Sometimes the diamond one is gonna show on the design, so you gotta find a way to hide it. Okay, but this one here usually hides itself pretty good with a sand stitch. Okay, so connectors here. Sometimes you want to turn off, so you could select all the items except for your first and last, and then you could turn off like tie-ins, right? Usually they shouldn't be turned on, right? They're unless these parameters are true. Okay, but if you have a as long as you have your running stitches correctly, right? Uh, they should just jump, right? They should just jump to the other ones. Bam. So right here you can see type jump, all right? So that's just controlling your tie-ins, tie-outs. But for the most part, the software does it for you, right? It does it for you as long as you have your settings right there. Just standard, you should be good. All right, start, stop, tie-ins, tie-outs, trims, and jumps, okay? So for example, here, right? I have this one, and then it goes to the circle. So this run stitch goes here, H. If I were to move it drastically, like right here, right, it's going to trim because now let's see the distance from here. Bam, it's like 6 millimeters, right? Anything less than 2 millimeters, it'll just jump. But if I select this item right here, right, go back to connectors, um, trim after, if I just say off, right? I could say off, it's gonna override it. It's just gonna jump to that next one, right? Now, you gotta be careful when you're doing that because sometimes it's gonna be like a big giant jump and a big piece of string is gonna be hanging out there. Okay, so only necessary if you're going to H, right? Let's say you, instead of 2, it's like 3 millimeters, right? Then you can probably turn it off. But for the most part, just keep your running stitches close, right? Below that 2 millimeters, and then it's gonna automatically adjust itself right there. Okay, bam. All right. Let me see, trims, saving and exporting. Okay, that's the big one here. Now, right, Wilcom just made it a whole lot easier, especially like when I'm sending out files to a group of people where everybody has different files, right? Or if you're selling files, output file before, export machine file, right? Output files now, right? You just click on everything, all the ones you want, right? You got all the Wilcom design ones, right? We got all these, we got all the different machine ones, Verden, right? Tajima, bam, bam, all of them. Bam, you got all that, okay? And then you just, wherever you want to save them, right? On your computer, bam, and then output, right? Easy way to just output all those files, right? Especially when I do like just free files and all that. Now I'm not gonna have to do them one by one. I just in one shot just put them all out. Okay. Let me see. Bam. Um, let me highlight some of these new features. I know Selena was she introduced like so many features. Really, if I were to showcase all of those features, it'd probably be like a 10-hour webinar. Okay, but there are a lot of features that I do want to dive deep in future shows, especially after I do more reps with them. Okay, let's see. The big one that I saw, right? Uh, the multi blend, right? That's the big one right now. And I know there's a lot of digitizers that's like their genre, right? Like blending and doing all this cool stuff. Turn this black, right? But the one that I'm gonna really dive deep and really learn this one, right, is this multi-blend, right? So you saw how I just pushed this one, the multi-blend, and then all these cool screens or all these cool windows popped up, right? So we could change these colors, bam, right? All right, bam. And we could add more colors, right? If you're doing like blending, cool stuff like that, right? Definitely, this one's gonna be like its own show right here when I start getting into this one, right? So let me see. Let me move this screen here. Uh, yeah, so once we start diving deep into this one, right? But that's like the big one, especially for those genres where gradient shading, right? I know there's a huge genre of like animals and pets, right? Like this one right here would be like the super go-to one because now it's not only two colors that you can do, right? You could just add colors and colors and colors. So like right here, I have like 5 colors, okay? And really, once you understand the main settings, right? Let me get out of this one. Oops. Once you understand settings, right? It's gonna make adjusting the settings a whole lot easier, right? Where you could fine tune whatever you're trying to get into, okay? But that's something that I'm gonna kind of dive deep in a different show right there, okay? But for right now, let's see. Let's recap real quick. 10-point checklist, okay? And like I said before, this is really like the the platform and the format that I'm going to use this coming year, 2026, when I'm teaching classes. Everything's going to be reverted to this one here, and we're always going to go back and go through this checklist, right? But parameters, right? What's the size? Let me see. Let's measure the size right here, right? 2.4. Since when I do hats, um, if the height is the longest distance, then I like it like about 2.25. And if the height or if the width is the longer side, right, I like it about like right here, 2.4, 2.5. Okay, so it's all ratio wise, and you'll see in an upcoming video where I stitch out this hat, right? Like I'm looking at it right now, and it looks super fresh right here. Right, sequence, to me, sequence, that's the most challenging part of embroidery is the sequence. Where do I start? Because there's no right answer, and you don't know if it's right or wrong till it stitches out. Okay, and nobody's gonna do it the same. So especially like a design like this, right? I'm telling you, you give this to 10 different people, 10 different people are gonna have different sequence in this one. Okay, but the sequence, that's where your brain is really working into overtime, and we got to decide what's going first, what's overlapping. So here I decided this one, I want this one to overlap, right? Then we got to decide, where do we want to start, where do we want to end? Okay, stitch type, right? Sand stitches is really for details. Fill stitches is just to fill out big areas, right? And run stitches, that allows us to move around our design without to avoid trims, right? Or you could even use, if you're very artistic, you could use run stitches as the actual design too. Okay. Uh, then my main settings: delay, density, length, stitch length, right? Those play a role on which stitch type we're gonna use, and then stitch angles. So we could see our stitch angles, right? It looks appealing here, right? So let's say we put like if I were to put a stitch angle that doesn't make sense, right? Something like this, right? Like you would notice it from a mile away. Okay, so really, stitch angle is more like our eye knows where to put that stitch angle, right? So with experience, you kind of know where that stitch angle should kind of lay. But usually things should be parallel, perpendicular, right? That's how our eye likes symmetry. And then underlay, right? Underlay. Everything is here on the object property area. And it's just how much is needed, right? How much is needed. And I'm still trying to come up with a scientific formula, but really there is no scientific formula. It's just how wide are your sand stitches or how thick is your garment, right? That's going to determine how much underlay you need. Pull compensation, right? So we could stretch our design a little bit. Now we can do it on both sides, okay? And then pull comp, start stops, start stops. So sometimes we got to move things around, right? We're coming in here, H, right? If we see a trim that we don't like, right? So let's say like here, we got this, oh, this is where it ended. Here, we introduced a trim, right? We see these triangles. That's how we know there's a trim, H, all right? But it depends where we started here. Hold on. Let me see my 1, 2, 3. All right, but let me see. Yeah. Oh, I see where it's at. H. I'm introducing other stuff. All right. Let me just try this last thing here. You can always put like close joint, Control Z. All right, I'm gonna go back and find this triangle, right? But usually, because I changed it from, I changed, oh, I know what I could do. Okay. Oh, okay, it's not really, I thought I had an unnecessary trim, but it's actually the trim from it's the trim from the placement stitch, all right? So that's why I was like trying to take away, but it doesn't even exist. So of course the placement stitch is gonna have a trim. All right, we're actually good. It didn't introduce any unnecessary trim. Then you can see how I gotta fix this stitch angle, like I didn't fix it. Oops. Yeah, you could tell when that stitch angle looks ugly. All right, and then pull com start stops, right? Start stops to keep our sequence flowing. Tie-ins, tie-outs, right? We have options to override, trims, jumps, and saving, exporting, right? That's all the checklist right there. All right, so Selena, I am good with the 10-point checklist.
Awesome. Awesome. Yay.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Romero. Or Ever, I'm sorry. Let's go on, and we just have a couple questions, or maybe we can just clarify a few things.
Yes.
So going over to when you did refer to the walking stitch, can you elaborate a little bit on what a walking stitch is? Is it a run stitch? Is it a special stitch within Welcome? And how does it operate, or what is its used to do
I
to
would
utilize a
say
walking stitch?
I would say a walking stitch is like it, I see it like a strategic stitch. So let me see. Uh, so let's say, let me just delete all these right here. Uh, and hold on. Okay. So let's say I have these two objects here, right? And I want to go from one side to another. So instead of just stitching this out, getting a trim, right, which is a triangle here. Fix that there. Okay. Instead of trimming it and then doing this side here, right, I'm just gonna walk over there, right, and avoid that trim. So here is my digitized run. And I know there's a trim here because you could see that little dimple here. Okay. And I could just walk from here, here, okay, to the next one. Bam. Then I could select it. I could select, I want to go here first, here second, here third sequence. All right. So here that triangle disappeared, right? This is where it starts. Here I gotta adjust. So I need to adjust. I know I'm ending here on the walking stitch, H. Actually, what I could just do, H, move it up closer to this circle, because that's where it starts, right? Now that trim went away. So in this
Nice.
situation, we use the running stitch. Same thing, running, walking. Okay. We use
Mhm.
this strategically to avoid that trim. So that's where I really use it for a lot of
Nice.
my designs.
Nice. Because I mean, trims at the end of the day, we want to avoid that, right, for production purposes, especially if we're in high volume. Also, it's kinder to our machine, right? Just a smooth run every time.
Yes, yes.
Nice.
It's like a karate chop. Yeah, it's like a karate chop to the machine, right?
there,
Unnecessary.
there you go. Okay, great. Hope that answers those questions there. Um, all right, and the connectors panel, we had some questions about it. Some people just never really understanding or never understood that connectors panel. Can you elaborate a bit on the with object properties under connectors and just what they are? Again, it kind of coincides to the trim talk
Yeah.
or the walking stitch talk, but how that would be incorporated or to utilize the
Yes.
connectors.
So okay, let me keep two. Let me just keep two of these. Uh, okay, we could get these two items right. All right. So we could separate them a tad bit. Right. Here we go. All right. So we have this one going first. So you can see we're starting here on the left. Comes up here, trims. Then it starts here. H. We could start here and here. Okay. So if we want to connect these, right, there's like this gap here. And we have go to millimeters. Right, we got about 3 millimeters, right? If we want to bridge this gap, we say, hey, we want to avoid this trim here, let's jump over here, right? So what we could say, after object, sometimes it's confusing whether it's after object or inside object is more like a text. So we could just keep after object, right? If we want to jump, trim after. So here, this is where our parameter here. So after 2, it's going to trim. But if we put, let's say we put 4, so we just measured it at 3 point something. So it shouldn't. Hopefully it doesn't. Bam, took it away. Now it's going to jump out here. And then the 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 biggest my jump would be is 7 millimeters. So if I measure this, right, 7 would be like all the way up here. Okay, but since I changed this to 4 millimeters, right, it's gonna just jump. So if I move this, if I keep on moving it up, right, so it passed 4 millimeters, right, it's close to like 4.06. So that's where, if you want to avoid, right, you could probably go, if we go 5, it'll go away, right? So that's just a way to avoid cuts. Sometimes something this long, you could just cut it, right? Like if in production, you
Mm,
could cut it afterwards. So that's really for that one. Trim after. So we could do that, and that's really the time. I mean the connectors, kind of in a nutshell. with that.
Nice. Perfect. And then just one last, earlier when you were doing your nodes, or actually inputting nodes, it looks like there's a question of why insert multiple nodes versus just doing 2 nodes on the hook. It looks like, was that the hook section? Was that just more precision? Looks like there was a, yeah, let me make sure I'm showing that. Yeah, when you why create multiple nodes on a curve rather than just 2 nodes and setting the curve with the handles?
Yeah, so that's actually a real great question right there. So you do wanna put the least amount of nodes. So like right here, I put just one here, and then the other one's all the way up there. Uh, yeah. So on this side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then because I noticed when I was doing it, I added more nodes here. So on this side, you could see how I added more. Um, really, it's just if you could add the least amount, the better, right? I probably
Mm-hmm.
did add an extra one there. It's easier to if you need to make adjustments and you only have one node, it's easier to make a just like a global adjustment here, right? Because when you
Right.
have multiple, like here, right, it's only gonna do that little part, so you're like limited. So in a perfect world, like if I'm taking my time, I would I would make minimum nodes right here. But that's a good catch right there.
Mm-hmm.
So yes,
Nice.
less nodes is better, but uh, if you have one or two more extra ones, that's fine. It's not gonna affect the design.
Right. Okay. So it looks like one last question here, and we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Is there a way to split the nodes so that they can be adjusted individually? The arrows, that is, she's asking. Um, Maybe are you referring to the trims? The arrows would be the trims. Oh, she's saying that can you split that end hook, I believe, looks like maybe. But
Oh yeah. Oh okay. Let me see. Because I think I split them here.
hmm,
Um, let's see. I did split them.
that was for the puff, I believe. You did a overlap, right?
Yeah, because I did that right here. I put two
Yep.
pieces. I did that so because sometimes when if you do it all one piece, when it jumps over to the next one, it's gonna leave like a little gap. Like sometimes the foam shows. So that way that gap, that's just a preference that I had
Mm,
where I put two pieces as a little overlap. So this part here, it's overlapping this much here, about 3 millimeters.
nice.
Um, yeah, just puff because of the puff, and I want that sharpness to really look kind of stand out. So that's why I put two pieces. So one here and then one right below. One right, yeah, one here, one right below.
Perfect. That's the power of Wacom now. I mean, giving you all the control.
Yes.
Um, Well, we are going to wrap it up, guys. We could sit here all night and evening. That's how much we love it. But we want to thank everyone for sharing your afternoon, evening with us. Romero Threads, ever. We thank you so much for lending your knowledge to us and always just be willing to do so. It's a great welcome
Yeah.
ambassador for us. Um, Guys, please follow Romero on all social threads. He's on TikTok, and then I did highlight his YouTube page, Romero Threads. Follow, like he does. He does awesome lives periodically, and I mean, just the fact that there's still no fee on that Romero is
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
I know.
So so like, subscribe, follow him there. Any questions that you guys have regarding the 2026 or any features shown, feel free to reach out to us directly at Wellcom America at 877 657-7500, or you can email us at softwaresales@woolcomamerica.com. All right, and for those of you that could not attend, we will go ahead and email out this recording to everyone on the registered list, okay? All righty. Thanks so much, ladies and
Thank you.
gentlemen. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Ever. All righty. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.